And we're live.
We're live. Don't say
Awesome.
anything you can't take back. Bill and I haven't seen each other in a couple of weeks. We both have been working on other stuff. So it's nice to be back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jumping back in and rebooting the conversations with people in this space. And, one of the things that Bill and I talk about a lot is privacy and our data. And it really, to me, this is one of the most important things that I focus on personally in this space, in blockchain and crypto and everything that comes with it. Because it wasn't until I started learning about Bitcoin and blockchain and all of that that I realized that all these companies that I spend so much time on, all of the social media platforms, all of the search engines, they're all mining our data. They're using our data. Every time we're online, every time we're on their platforms, they use our data. And guess
They're
what?
stalking us.
They are, they're stalking us, but they're also making money, a lot of money off of our data. Yeah. And, when I started to learn what was happening, I was like, wait a minute, this is our data and we're not making a dime off of this. And they're buying it and selling it and trading it and whatever they're doing. And we're not getting anything from it. And so when I learned about blockchain and everything in the space, I realized, well, wait a minute, we could flip the script and start making money from our own data, monetize our own data, and flip the script and make them come to us to buy our data. It's always, for me, once I was enlightened about that, and once the light switch, if you will, was flipped, when I learned about that, I was like, hey,
yeah,
wait a minute.
It's like money for nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
And your chicks for free. So let's
Yeah.
bring it on.
But that's one of the things that when I was on LinkedIn one day that really attracted me to this LinkedIn page, UBDI, and its CEO. I stumbled across it, and that's what their company was all about. It's a social media platform, if I'm correct, and it also allows its users to monetize their data. So I thought this, it's a start, and it's a great start for people, the average person, just the average Joe, to take a look at something like this and go, well, wait a minute, okay, I can learn, they learn about it too. They become enlightened about it. And maybe I can use a platform like this to start turning the tables.
Well, and I own an ad agency, and when I started looking at this, I'm like, oh man, finally somebody actually might be on the verge of actually doing this. In this space, we hear all the time, this project, that project is, we're going to, you can own your own data. You ought to be making money. So that concept of you should control your own data and make the money from it. That's not a new concept, but this UBDI looks like they may be close enough to actually pulling it off and helping, having an ad agency, we're all about trying to reach the right person for the right price for our clients and not waste ad dollars, which oh my gosh, even in the past year, when we move more and more of our budgets for our clients over to digital and banner ads and native and all of these things, I'm telling you, we get ripped off a lot. And that's a sick feeling, it's because I feel like it's my money we're spending. So
but all those cheers and woohoos you're hearing in the background.
So so let's talk about Dana, and I want Dana to explain to us how can a person feel better about who's advertising to them, and as an ad agency or advertiser, how we can feel like we're reaching the person who actually may want to be reached at a good price. Gosh. So welcome, Dana.
Dana Budzyn, CEO of UBDI. And we met on LinkedIn. So now
Yes,
we're
we
sort
did.
of meeting in person now.
I love
So
it.
good to see you.
So good to see you too. And please, I apologize. Right as you brought me in, my dog started barking.
Oh gosh.
I tried to cover the bases by turning the phone off in the pandemic, just everything, but I can't stop
Yeah,
the
it's no
dog.
problem. My DoorDash is here. Hold on.
Yeah. No, seriously, we've
Too
dealt with
perfect.
planes going over, landscapers in the background,
Okay, great.
dogs.
Yeah, we've had it all.
You know, I
I
think
feel less
everybody
bad.
well, I think everybody during this whole time has dealt with something or another on their Zoom calls or whatever they're doing, you know,
Too many
podcasts,
elements, you
all that.
can't
Yeah.
control it, you know? But thank you so much for having me. And it was great to e-meet you, which is what I always annoyingly say on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And it's great to actually meet you now. And thank you for having me to chat about this. But I'm excited. I can kick off by telling a little bit about UBDI, but I want
Oh, it's UBDI. I like that even better.
Oh yeah.
All
So
right.
well,
UBDI.
it does stand for Universal Basic Data Income, but on podcasts we started saying UBDI because people didn't know how to spell it. We learned that I learned that a really hard way on NPR. I said
Oh.
UBDI and everyone was saying like OOO, like BDI, like, and so everyone was typing these things. And we were just like, okay, we have to be clear. So when we go on a podcast, we say UBDI, but it's actually pronounced UBDI. So the more you know.
Oh, very good. Well, universal basic data income.
Yes.
That okay. That kind of encapsulates the whole idea of
Yes.
really what you're trying to do here. But before we get into that, what was it that kind of propelled you into this space and got you to start thinking about turning the tables and monetizing our own data and creating something that lets the average person make money from their own data and not all the social media platforms and search engines? Did you have an experience, or was it a moment of enlightenment?
No moment of enlightenment per se. It was a years in the making situation. But when I was 18, I got really sick. I went into a coma. It was a whole thing. I had 5 major surgeries. It was very not ideal. 2 of 10 would not recommend to anyone. And so through that experience, though, I was at several different hospitals and they didn't know what happened to me. And so a lot of my doctors were like, okay, there were 2 things. One, I had trouble collecting this data from different places, right? The health industry is one of the most fragmented when it comes to actually being able to aggregate your own data. And so that was frustrating for me because I'd go to different doctors and I'd have to fill out all these forms. And I was like, I just want to send you all of this stuff. Like, why don't I have it? And I didn't have a great look of it myself, right? So there were a couple things there that just on the control piece, on the visualizing your data piece, I was like, this is broken. This is frustrating. This is mine. I'd like to see it clearly. And then on top of that, I actually did, I was an intern, I was in college, and I was doing research at JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory. It's one of NASA's institutes here in Pasadena, California. And they were starting a research consortium of companies trying to like remission detector systems in space. Yeah, I know. You're like,
Oh, so
where is
she's a
this
rocket
going?
scientist.
No,
Now it makes sense.
no.
Totally following.
Intern. But no, they were trying to remission these detector systems for medical applications. And what's crazy is that it was City of Hope, Children's Hospital, all these people coming together, and they're like, we just need certain health data of like these types of patients. We need certain data of these types of people. And it was that same thing that happens with all of the data, right? Just like you said, for your ad agency, it's about reaching the right people with an offering. So for my health data, in this case, I would have shared it with anyone to be able to find out what happened to me, why, all of that. But that value exchange might have just been for me. But for most people, you could share your health data. You're donating it to a public good, and then it's being used in private companies that make a lot of money and charge you like 3,000x for something that you contributed your data to. So I wanted to see like how we could balance that scale. And the thought came in the health industry, but then, looking at the wider perspective of everything across social media and things I was probably a little bit more familiar with, I was like, you know what, this applies to all of this data that we're, creating and curating on Facebook and TikTok now, but Instagram and everywhere else. And so what if we could build a vehicle for people to aggregate and visualize their data and then be able to share that for some value exchange? It's obviously monetary right now, but it can be other value exchanges in the future, and just have a more transparent exchange of what people are doing with your information. So that's where it began. And then UBDI is, the embodiment of that. Yeah.
Oh my
Did it
gosh.
embody itself from the start, or was it several iterations and ideas? And
Ha. No, it's changed immensely. When we started, one of our past co-founders was the US. I don't want to, since I'm probably not going to speak positively about the company, I don't need to give their name. But we partnered with a company that was kind of that data bank where you could aggregate your data into it. It would put it in a private vault like Dropbox or Google Drive, and they'd encrypt it for you. And then you could share that data with other apps. And when I met him, he was 45 and had exits and was seen as an expert in the space. And I thought, wow, this is going to be more decentralized, not perfect, not blockchain based, but more decentralized, give people this private vault, and then let them share data with us. And we can do edge processing and analyze data on the device before it goes up to people, and blah, 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 all these cool buzzwords and everything. And it was horrible. It required people to download 2 apps. People were confused on who they were versus who we were. And like, even though everything was so private and so secure, like almost the more steps you gave someone, the more confused they were and the more scared they felt about what's happening with my data, despite trying to be more transparent, because it was just too complicated. And so anyways, through a long set of other hiccups and delays by building, your core infrastructure on another company, which can obviously lead to a lack of control when things are frustrating for you, we in March decided 2 things. One, we can't have another second app that is the data, aggregator where people link their sources like Facebook and this and that, and then choose to share it in our app. No, no more of that. We're going to have to build this data bank ourselves. And part 2, what's a better, people always think that Facebook and, it's so valuable because of our data. And I've said that, and that is true, but people need to realize that data is more like the if you're driving on a road, this is the analogy I use to bring people into the physical realm. If you're driving on a road and billboards are the ads, right? Data is the navigation system that is going to direct you to these different billboards, but it's not the billboard itself. And so part of Facebook's value, part of Instagram's value, right? It's the attention economy. It is, you are spending your time on YouTube, you are watching these videos, and they have a digital real estate in front of your face to put something. And that data can help put the right thing in front of you. And so, yes, the data is contributing, but that attention is also very important. So we said, you know what, people aren't just gonna, the chicken and egg problem of getting people to link data to, get paid for their data. It's not valuable one person at a time. It's valuable with all of these people. And so we, when we tried to pay people out to link your data and we're going to pay you out, we just couldn't reach that scale that's necessary. And we said, this has to be fun. We have to give someone a value that regardless of what they're earning, right? They want to be here, and we're giving them some value adds based on their data. On top of it, respecting their privacy. And on top of that, when there are ads and there are research opportunities for them, because we've reached that critical mass, you can now earn from your data, and you'll get 70% of any ad, of any research opportunity that comes your way. So the new motto I love that you pulled this up. Our new motto is not just earn with your data, it's talk, learn, and earn. And that's what people can do in our app. So,
so as far as people understanding how their data is used and how it's mined by all these social media companies and search engines. Do you feel like you have a hard time explaining to them why it's such a big deal? Because your company here seems to make it so easy and breaks it down really well from the website.
Thank you.
You know, for the average person to just look at that and go, hey, oh, wait a minute, I can make some money off of my data and my time and attention, like you said. Do you have a hard time convincing them why this is such a big deal?
We do, and what's I think frustrating is it's different for each person. I mean, that's obviously expected. We are, at least in America and then around the world, everyone has different perspectives based on their background. And so for some people, it's almost easier to sell them something that they're going to pay for than it is to say we're trying to help you, because there's this gap of trust that's like, who is this blonde lady? Like, why am I trusting her? Or I'm going to give my data, and how's that going to be used? And since it's not necessarily immediate, I think that's the hardest piece for us. Is there's a chicken and egg problem that has always existed in the data monetization space, which is companies do not care until you reach a critical mass, and people don't care until they have immediate, what we found is immediate and consistent compensation, which is what they were expecting. And so when you have to reach that critical mass and then you can see more ads, then you can see more research studies. When people want all that stuff up front, that comes from VC money. And that's a really hard, when we were first just only doing that earn, that was really hard to sell, because it was spending a lot of money that, wasn't necessarily paying them for their data. It was just to get them to link things and take certain actions. And it just wasn't sustainable. So I think part of the reason we've tried, and I love that you think that our website is simple and explains it well. Part of it is people understand social media. They understand, they see ads. So the idea that, hey, this is a new social media platform that pays you for ads, and that over time, as you link different data sources and do different things, one, there's going to be more personalized ads to you that are going to pay you more. And two, we can actually take that ad infrastructure and put it into other apps where people can advertise to you in other places, where you're all earning all of that ad income, you're earning all of that research income into one place. And so I think that makes more sense to people than just the plain, I'm going to pay you for your data piece. I think that freaks people out too much, and it really has to dive into the social aspect to make sense.
So then, all right. So when I looked at your website, it didn't strike me as being a social media platform.
Yeah. Well,
and
oh, go ahead.
So is it how, and if it is, how is it?
Yeah. So it's a little bit, I wish I don't know if I can screen share. I don't have it up right now, but I could pull it up. I can break it down. So really what you're doing is, what we did is we created verified communities, which are also audience buckets. So you can enter into the crypto investors tribe by linking your Coinbase or your Gemini or your Binance. We even added Robinhood, right? So you can link these data sources to get into this verified tribe, where we then give you different value adds. So in that tribe particular, you can, the same way, I don't know if you're on StockTwits or even just Reddit, you can add links, add media, add memes, do whatever it is that you want. You can poll people to ask questions, and even filter those polls by how people of certain gender and ages and portfolio amounts are answering. And then you can, so that's the talk section, right? And that's pretty traditional. It's, Twitter, Reddit, whole Facebook posting. And then in that tribe, we also have the learn piece, which is, if you opt in your data, you can actually see a real-time trade feed of what everyone is doing, right? And so you can get a sense of signals that people are doing, and even teach yourself a little bit on what are other people trading? What are people, this news article came out, what are people reacting to that? And give that transparency that all these, big conglomerates, they can use your data to make this money in the crypto space and the investment space and all these different things. And now you have that transparency that you are, combining your data with other people to learn yourself. So like those are what's happening in the tribes. And by doing that, you're getting people to link data, right? These data sources, you're putting them into verified audience groups, which are tribes. The same way on Facebook groups, people send an advertisement because they want to reach people in the puppy group because they think they like, must have a pet, right? You basically build that, audience bucket for advertisers and researchers to reach the right people, while also allowing people to learn with each other, engage with each other, and have that social aspect in a bot-free community. So does that make sense?
Yeah,
Sure.
it does.
So everyone's verified, basically.
For
would that be
most
a
of the
fair statement?
tribes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of the
So
tribes.
to
yes.
earn, you have to be verified. For the majority, like for fitness, you have to link like Apple Health, Strava, Google Fit. For investors, right now we have Robinhood and we'll add TD Ameritrade. So, obviously as more sources come, it's kind of like also an identity system where most of the toxic stuff, not all of it, but a lot of the toxic stuff from Facebook, from Twitter, from Reddit, is this ability to just have bot armies go and push information. And so if we feel we can get rid of that, we can really benefit the human connection piece that these companies were saying they were going after, while also getting people paid. So we're trying to do two value adds: the money piece, which is great and can really help people's lives, as well as the actual non-monetary value that brings you there initially.
All right. So as an advertiser or agency, I'd pay a premium not to just reach a tribe, but maybe a click within that tribe.
So you can do several things on our research and ad portal. You can reach people, like they opt in, right? So their data bank is creating what I call a preference warehouse. They're just doing it without having to think about managing data, because that no one likes that. It sounds stressful. We saw that people are like, this is work. So what they're really doing is building a preference warehouse where, depending on the tribes they're interested in, the data they link, a bunch of different things, they're building what they're opting in their data to basically earn, right? And so an advertiser or a researcher can do a couple of things. For one, you can reach people with certain data sources. So you can say, I want people who have linked, I want people who have Facebook and Twitter. I want people who have, Strava and Coinbase. I don't know why you'd want that combination, but you could do that. You can do it based on the tribes that they've entered, which are already verified audience buckets, because you know what data they've linked. And you can even query on a more granular level, which I think is where that added bang for your buck on a business side goes, and also that added bang for your buck as a person wanting to be compensated for my data, where you can say, hey, this person has 10 Bitcoin in their wallet. I don't know who they are. They have 10 Bitcoin. So I'm going to send them a really personalized ad because I want them to come to my exchange, or I want them to do this thing. And I'm going to send that advertisement right to them. So I think, you can say, I want, one research study we did is the ability to, I want people who've spent, less than $250 at Target just over the last 3 months. And so this ability to target there, I mean, research is different than ads, so we can get into that in a second. But that ability to target very granularly, very personally, but with the person knowing exactly how they were matched with an ad, because it tells them straight up, whatever you type, whatever query you're doing on the back end to match with these people is showing up to them. They're going to see it. So it'll show you exactly how they were targeted. It'll tell you what you're going to pay them for their time and attention of seeing this ad. And then from there, research is a little bit different and we can get into that. But I think overall that gives advertisers even greater depth to someone, but it's a depth that they've chosen to allow. And it can get you fairly compensated when they do choose to spend their time and attention looking at whatever ad you've put in front of them.
does everyone get paid the same?
So if you send like a actual just flat out ad, yes. If you're doing something well, actually, depending if you're sending it to like one person because only one person qualifies and you made it really special, no. But if you're, of course, sending this to a group of like 500 people of a certain type, everyone is getting paid the same.
So
The
there's no like
difference,
social influence score that comes up that says, well, this person's more valuable than another, or I've done X amount of tasks, so now I'm at a higher level, I get paid more, anything like that?
yeah, nothing like that right now. So we had this concept of UBDI points when we first built this, and I've probably said so much confusing stuff already, so keep me focused. But when we first built this, we were gonna just do it as a cryptocurrency, and it was 2018, like late 2018, and a bunch of the different avenues we were exploring were just gonna confuse a lot of people, and they were gonna cost a lot of money legally as well. And so we just said, with all this data, you can't have an extra creep factor of most people are still confused about what Bitcoin is. They think crypto, they get worried, right? We can't pair this data with that to start. So we turned what was originally just UBDI, as a currency into UBDI points. And I think, to be candid, we have a couple of different paths we want to explore with them. And one is more of that, like that social contribution, that as you contribute and as people spend their time on your profiles and other things, almost like every single person becomes an influencer, every single person becomes a content creator. And, the more time people spend, you get more tokens. And then as different ads, come around, things might be split among, like the revenue might be split among people. So there's a couple different things we're exploring there with the point UBDI points / future token. But for right now, our goal is simply, let's grow this community to a critical mass where we can start to get the revenue in that would even back a token or sustain the business model. So
all of the points, ads, and credits, whatever, everything's through this one app. You're not on other channels or networks with the ads?
Correct. Not yet. So what we're looking to build is that API where once someone builds this, like we don't want to turn into someone that needs to suck up your attention too, right? We don't want to use those same dark patterns that these companies use. But we also saw that getting to a critical mass of just asking people like, hey, link your data and wait around to get paid when all of that data becomes worth it. Or we have to raise VC money to pretend that we're like pay you for your data when it's not valuable yet, right? We were like, this is not sustainable. This will not work. So this network that we've built is a way to get people in, get people linking data, get people for fun to build these, their preference warehouse of data. And then we want to build an API where other startups, other applications can basically have a sign-in with UBDI. And then that app can split the money with that person. And the money would obviously all go to their UBDI account, which they can cash out through Uphold, which is the same as Brave Browser uses, which lets you turn anything to anything. So you can turn your cash into crypto, you can turn your cash into stocks, you can turn your cash and keep it as cash if you want, or gold or whatever you want. So that's kind of our big mission, is like, we have to have a place to start, but we want this to expand across other, applications. I'd love if, while I don't love Facebook for obvious reasons, I'd love if we built this and Facebook was like, yeah, you can sign in with UBDI. And if you see an ad that's like through the UBDI research portal that shows up on your Facebook, you're going to get paid through UBDI because it's a premium offering of data that is, that you've permissioned and is only available through UBDI, and it's not available through Facebook.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
So, so could I start my own tribe?
Right now, we're limiting it simply because we're a team of about like 5 people right now. And when you have user generated content, there's obviously, there's things that we have to think through. We don't want to be the arbiters of truth in this. We also don't want someone tomorrow to build a KKK group and us go, well, this happened sooner than we wanted it to, but that's not okay.
Right.
So right now, these are very specific, and we've identified very specific audience buckets that are of the most value and encourage people to link these data sources. And we've put them in the app. So they're broader. They're the crypto investors, we put some fun ones like books, we have current events. We've put these much bigger topics. And then over time, yes, I think people will be able to create their own tribes and own groups. But right now, we're focusing on linking data, getting this data to be the most valuable that it can be as a group. And then from there, we'll expand that social experience out.
I know you and I were talking before, Dana, about blockchain and decentralization.
Yeah.
But right now, you're not blockchain based.
No.
Is that because it really can't scale yet? Or what are the reasons why you guys haven't been blockchain based versus, working towards decentralization?
Yeah. So, I mean, for that, we were kind of with that initial build that I talked about of building on that partner app where you get your private vault in like a Dropbox, a Google Drive or whatever, even though that isn't perfectly decentralized, right? It seemed like a middle step. And I mean, that first off, it was just building on their technology. We learned the very hard way that like when you don't have control over your own system and it's reliant on that, then their system breaking gets 20,000 angry users in your support group shitting on you.
Yeah.
So we learned that the very not fun way for months. And so, but Filecoin is now, like, we had looked at Filecoin way back when, and we were just like, I don't think they're there yet. And now it seems like, okay, Filecoin's starting to do well, and we want to see a couple different projects and other things being built on them before we, maybe repeat our own mistakes. But we're definitely eyeing the storage space for this data, the centralized storage space for this data. And we'd like to do it in a way that isn't so costly. Because remember, if we're giving 70% of our revenue back to users, like, we also can't have crazy costs where I think it was like $5 a gigabyte that was on a company called Datum a year ago. Like, it was wild cost that you were like, no one can afford this. And if we can't afford it, then no money's going back to a user. So that's something that we just have. It's the scalability, it's the cost. But we're eyeing the space. We're working in a working group with a company called Ceramic. Actually, they're not a company. It's a working group called Ceramic. But they, I don't know if you've heard of 3Box. Very cool. Okay, well, very cool. I won't go into explaining them now, but check them out. Very similar to what we were trying to do with the other company, with like that data bank that you can share with different apps and whatnot. And they want to be able to do that on a blockchain. So very cool people, very cool guys that run that. The founder's name is Danny, and he's running this Ceramic group that are trying to build profiles, take these traits that people enter into our app, take the data they build with the app, and build basically one decentralized identity system for across the web. And so while I don't have perfect details on that, because we're talking about how it can work and still just figuring that out and figuring out all the pieces that need to come together for that, there's a lot of cool stuff that we can do in the blockchain space, but we definitely needed to, start where we started.
Yeah.
We tried the like theory thing, but in practice it was like, well, the company will die if we keep doing so we need to change this up.
Scalability is the number one problem, I feel, still with blockchain, in that it's just not there yet. The whole idea is fantastic, but scalability for global use isn't there yet. But it's getting there.
Well, but we see these bigger, like, I would call them crypto type projects, where they talk the big dream of everybody's data, they having, data sovereignty, like Ontology when we interviewed them. which all are awesome ideas, but the adoption of it seems so difficult to get. Like, eventually it's a land grab, in my opinion. And how do you get people to adopt and want to enter that system that they feel like they're in control of and trust? And, there's, of course, the people like Facebook and Google who already are people, they have people's attention. That seems like the logical first space for that, but it's the most dangerous space for it from what we're learning. So who's that player that comes along that can capture that to where people are like, hey, I'm willing to give to this well, I think they're more driven by, I'm willing to earn from this. So I think you're onto something, but ultimately the scalability has to be so gigantic because, like, all right, Facebook and Google are who they are because of advertising.
Right.
And so that's just gives you a sense of scale of how big advertising is in this world and how much of it we are bombarded with. And so eventually you've got to be on some sort of platform that can have the transactions per second and all of the other great things that we should be hoping to get from distributed ledgers. But so it seems like you've got to have a natural progression into this blockchain scalability that we're all seem to be racing towards.
Yeah, no, it's a funny thing because especially when it comes to blockchain and the data space, and I've been very heads down in the sand, so there's probably some things I'm missing here. But the projects that I've seen that we were kind of like, ooh, these are our competitors, keep an eye on them. The things that I've seen is, for one, it's like a data marketplace where you're going to sell your data, and that acts like data is just like a file. Like, that you just somehow, like, my Facebook data, I'm going to put it in a file and sell it. I'm going to make money. And it's like, that's not why Facebook is valuable. Like, and I think that comes from, distinguishing for people. Before I get too off topic, bring me back to the question. I'm going to divert for a second. But people don't realize there's the attention economy and using that data to put ads in front of them. Facebook, Google reach people at the right time. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. They're searching things, right? So it allows them to reach people at the right time. There's that. Then there's the data sellers behind the scenes, the identifiers for different programmatic ads. Well, there's programmatic ads, and then there's even one step further is like the email lists that you see where someone's like, you can buy this email list of me of professionals in the whatever space. And you're like, do they know that? Like, where did you get that?
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary to know that people can. I mean, I'll admit we use maybe not lists like hey, I'm going to buy this list. We buy data that includes that information that's aggregated from multiple big data corporations. And so you're aggregating bits from different sources to say, here's 100,000 people that we think are ready to buy a home right now.
Right. Exactly.
Let's advertise to them. And it's pervasive. I mean, you look at it and go, we know who these people are. And it's not we're trying to target a type of person. No, it's literally targeting a person when it comes down to it. But it's all about trying to get the most for that ad spend. And so, because I'm a dichotomy, I'm a privacy advocate, but I'm also leveraging data to target people.
Well, I think one, that's the only choice you have right now, which is a problem. And part two,
which is why I like what I saw when I saw your website. I'm like, there's maybe a difference, another more ethical feeling approach.
And privacy is also, what people don't realize is privacy is about choice. Period. End of story. What you share with someone in a private text box, if they go sharing that around, right, that feels like a violation of your privacy and your trust because you were sending this specifically to one person. I use an example because it's what creeps everyone out and makes them understand what that feels like. So, but then if it's the same thing with a company and we want to create that transparency where if you're going to reach out to me, I want to know how you matched with me, for one, which is what we offer. I feel better that you're at least respecting me enough to give me part of the money that you were going to advertise to reach me. That right there builds this respect between me and you. And two, I'm going to choose the pieces that you can use to, you know, market to me. And if I say, you know what, that creeps me out, I don't want to see that anymore, that choice should be respected. So I think it's about, you know, people always think privacy is like putting your data in a black box and like, no one will be able to use any of my data. That's privacy. And it's like, no, privacy is about being able to know and be aware of what's being used for what and where, right? And so that's what we want to try and do, because some people are very comfortable with their data. Just take it, be out there, do whatever you want with it. And some people are like, you know what? I don't want anyone to see these things about me or be able to reach me because of them. But here's some list of things that I'd like to earn from. And I think that should just be, it's just a more respectable economy that we could definitely create.
Hey, look, I hate Google and love them at the same time. You know, I use their free tools. You know, there's so much in our business we use. They're like, oh, this is cool. Google's letting us do this. But we know that if you think about it, you should know it's coming at a price.
Yep.
And so they're using your data to sell to advertisers, because as an ad agency, we're using that data to advertise on Google. Yep. So I see that pretty clearly. But yeah, so what if I were Facebook or Google? We'll use Google, for instance. Let's say if you were a company starting from scratch, you're doing the same path that Google's on, and you start creating free maps and all kinds of other things that you're ultimately selling data on a person, you know, but you're giving people, you know, Google Docs, and the list goes on of the great things Google gives us.
Yeah.
But then they make that investment back by selling that data to an advertiser. What if that same, I'm sort of riffing here, but what if that same model were being built, but the users knew they were going to get paid for using it?
For using the data, or for like using
the tools.
Hmm.
So if I knew I were using Google Maps, we'll use Google for the example, but if I'm using Google Maps and I get heartburn, you know, I use it. I literally I have a choice. I have 3 map apps on my phone, and I hate to click on Google because I feel like they're the ones watching me the most.
Yeah.
But if I knew I'm going to use Google because I'm going to get part of their ad revenue, and the sort of social agreement I have with them is they get some and I get some. They're giving me some good tools to use, keeping my attention. I'm happy to share what I'm up to a degree, but I know I'm getting part of the revenue from that.
Yeah.
By using similar by using maybe a technology like it sounds like you're providing.
Yeah. And I think what's so, like, thinking about that preference warehouse, and like, let's take that map example, right? So what can you use my location for? If I am entering this map, can you use it for ads? Can you use it for ads around a certain topic? Can you use it for infrastructure, where people pay a lot of what Google Maps, like a lot of people pay for, is this ability to know traffic, right? And especially traffic in different areas where they're looking to place a school, a church, whatever that might be. Sorry. Oh, COVID. No, I'm just kidding. That's a terrible joke.
No.
Well, we were all thinking it.
Every time I cough or sneeze, you're like,
we all
everybody turns, right?
I'm fine. Don't go after me. I'm staying in the house. Anyways, but when you're looking at maps like that, right, there's a lot of different things that they can use this data for. It's not just advertisement too. And like, if you're going to use that data to provide really great tools for traffic, and really great to study traffic, and even really great tools for where, you know, different zones should be for different laws or whatever to keep a city better, like city infrastructure, I'm all for that. And I should be able to say, use my location for those things. And as you get paid to, you know, as you get paid by these people, give me something. Doesn't have to be a lot. It could be 0.5 cents, because you're obviously dividing that from a bunch of cars that have opted in, or whatever that might be. But I agree with you. And I think that it's like one level more granular than that, where the privacy piece also comes from someone understanding location isn't just ads. It's all these other value adds that they can get because they have that scale in the aggregate. And you should be able to choose those things. You should be able to know, like, I'm listing 2 examples right now. There's probably like at least 10 plus more that Google's using the map. So more of that. And I'm in this space and I'm like, I can't even list, like, maybe if I really put my head down, but I can't even list half of the things that you can come up with for this thing. And that transparency should be there. And it should be the value exchange for either, hey, you can use this free service, and here's a list of things that we use this mapping data for. You can pick, we require either 3 of them to use it, or you can pay us $1. Like, I just feel, just that level of transparency, that level of choice. I know that's not a perfect example, but that's how it should be. And so it helps people understand their data without being overly complex.
Well, so, in today's world, people are getting more and more scared of location, and it's a double-edged sword. So we're excited. We're having a woman named Audrey Tang on in a couple of weeks, and she's sort of becoming very famous in the world as first non-binary digital minister for Taiwan. And they've done some amazing things with data and how they've dealt with COVID. One of which is very early on, from January 1st, if you entered Taiwan, you went into quarantine by either going to a facility that will set you up in, or you agreed to be geofenced.
Oh, okay.
Well, in that culture, maybe that's acceptable, and it seemed to be very successful for them. And so she and they are being very, lauded around the world for having achieved this. But in a lot of other cultures, I don't know if that's doable, because holy cow, you're gonna I can't
try that here.
Are you kidding me? You can't even get people to wear a mask.
Right. I mean, so but that's
suggested to be corralled.
But isn't that evidence of how scared we are of that eventuality? I don't want to be taken out of the game. I'm the whole idea of what do you call it? The tracing that they're talking about
contact
for COVID
tracing.
Scares the hell out of me, because I don't want to be like, oh, I want to go in this restaurant. Oh, you're out of the game. Go home. My kids are living it right now. I've got one ending quarantine today. One just ended another one. And it's just, boom, leave class, go home. Mom's coming to get you. And that's, it's a similar type. It's less data driven, as far as, device driven, but it's the same concept of you're living your life. Everything's cool. Bam, you're sidelined.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I don't use any of those apps as well. And I won't. So we're clearly case studies for how well this is going to work. But I will. It's also people have different relationships with their governments, like on a global scale, and we just don't trust ours point blank. Like, I don't care who you voted for, whoever you are, you don't trust something happening right now in our government.
I think globally, that even in other countries, even more so, they don't trust their governments. In other countries, I think for us, the distinction is our perception of freedom, and what So
and what that means,
and what it means to us as Americans, where you have people saying, you're not going to force me to wear a mask.
Right.
So we can talk about that for days.
We can get into culture,
but I agree with you in a scary in that when I see other countries, places like China, or for example, and Bill and I have talked about this before, social scoring, and that is frightening to me, and then having you constantly being tracked by facial recognition apps. I mean, facial recognition technology planted all around the city and the country.
People can't get around people can't even, once they control the bank account, where you spend your money, you're done for.
Oh yeah.
So it's terrifying.
Are you listening, China?
Yeah, right. I'm sure they are.
Yeah. All right, but then now we come back after setting all of that. How do we trust UBDI?
Yeah. Well, for one, we don't have access to your data, which actually is a little bit of a pain on the business side. It'd be so much easier if we did, but we built the infrastructure so that you have the only key to your data vault. And so even if we wanted to access your data, we couldn't. And that's why the earn section, when you opt into the earn section, so there's another step of, you've linked your data bank. It's only you can access it. You come into earn, you've said, I give permission to earn. And then for any actual research study or ad for the data to be used, you have to do an extra permission. And especially for research, like you have a consent form for each time, which some people found really annoying actually. And we're like, I linked my data, like use it, pay me. But we were like, no, relax. We're gonna start with this very granular, very every single study, every single ad that you see will be very clear and have like a consent form of what data has been used to match and all this other stuff. And then from there, we will, if any data wants to be used for like a research study and they want to extract like, a month of financial history or tweets and pins of a certain type of person, whatever that might be that they want to extract, it'll tell you exactly what data is leaving. We also have a data bomb, which we built. We're just trying to build all these things that give very clear transparency. So you can click the data bomb and blow all your data up. But then you have to relink it if you want to be part of the system again. But yeah, you can blow it up with a click of a button.
I'm being tailed. Blow it up.
Yeah. We hope that's not necessary because everything else is granular. So if you don't want something to be used, you don't have to. But at the same time, like we totally understand that if someone was like, I linked all this data and I'm freaking out, it's like hit the data bomb. And if you want to come back, come back. So it's really that simple.
So the social side, like to me, I look at it and go, I mean, I'm big into media production. And so like, I think of like B&H Photo, the biggest retailer of camera gear and gadgets for that world that exists. So anybody in that industry goes and buys from them, or Adorama, which is very similar. But some people are, so I guess for one, they advertise like crazy. Like they will do great stalker ads. If I look at a camera on there and then I go to another website, they're going to show me that camera 4 times on a banner ad. But also, so I think within that community, as just an example, people who become part of that tribe, they want to know what's going on with the next gear and all of that. So if you've got this Reddit style forums where people are discussing, how can a person become an influencer in that and share in the success of the advertising? Like we have influencers who maybe they create videos on YouTube to say, here, we're opening the box of this new camera, or I'm going to do a review. And they're really sharing, and they get paid by Google, for instance.
Yeah. So there's so many pieces of that. And one is the points that we have to figure out how to work out, but we didn't want it to end up being a social score. So there's lots of thinking to be done there. But one thing that we let people do is we actually, like, the idea is that you've curated this data for years on all these different platforms. So you can actually, like, for that YouTube example, you can actually just link your YouTube account and you can post data. So like people that link their Robinhood, as a post, I can post a verified trade that I've done and been like, yo, I bought Apple for this. And it'll show that I bought Apple at this and it's verified from my data bank, and talk about it. And I have a profile that someone can click on that can show my trades, can show my posts, and I can get that following. And so, we haven't, as we shifted this over the last 6 months and really just built what we thought was cool, we're looking to people to tell us like which pieces of this they find really interesting. But for one, that ability to gain a following, like any other social platform where you can be that creator, you can be that influencer in a space where someone might come to your profile and follow you to see your trades. Someone might follow you to see your Instagrams. Someone might follow you to see your YouTube videos. Because you can aggregate all that data in our app, it's kind of just one big warehouse of you for people, and you choose what you share with them. And for advertisers, you choose what you share with them. So I think, well, I hope that was, I know it wasn't a perfect answer there. I think the ability to gain that following is something that people can build their clout and build the ability to like make money on the side of this as well. But I think, and it's not perfect in my head. I think there's like, we want to do a mixture of like, I don't want to say socialism and capitalism. That's a really bad example. But like the ability for like everyone is earning together, like whether or not you're rich or whether or not you're not rich, like your data contributed to this. And it doesn't matter that someone had more money and you had less, because you're both in this system and you're both using UBDI, you deserve that revenue. And that's almost like a little bit like we split the money together because we made this happen together.
It's like everybody's got stock
yeah.
in it.
Yeah, everyone's got stock in it. Everyone's got their shares. They were originally going to be UBDI shares, but there was legal things with that. But everyone's got their piece in it. And then there's that other piece, which is like for research, when it's really looking at a specific type of person for different things, you might see a study where you earn, we did one for Commonwealth, 50 people earned $180 by sharing financial information. For a research study looking at like how the spending of IRS stimulus checks and how people were reacting to COVID and like doing a pulse survey. So there's these opportunities that we've paired advertising and research. And I know I haven't talked about that research piece a lot, but we've paired these things because advertising is going to give you small chunks of change. It's not going, you know, it will pay for some stuff, but it is not going, it's not a sustainable revenue. There are too many, to make it valuable, there has to be a lot of people. And to make it a lot of people, you're going to be seeing like 10 cents, 20 cents, 30 cents, maybe a little bit more for certain types of ads, but it's still in that lower amount, right? Whereas research, when you pair that on top of it, 100 of the right people, 1,000 of the right people might end up actually getting $180 for something, you know, and maybe that's every 2 months, maybe that's every 3, if we can reach that scale and have that larger company going out to brands in that sales channel. But those two things together, I think, are what make the data really valuable. And they make advertising, you know, even more interesting because you can advertise. Sorry, I went off topic again. You got to keep me focused. I am just I go everywhere.
We're a stream of consciousness here.
Hey,
you're
opening up ideas, you know?
Yeah. So we want people to say advertise like a researcher. So it's built where you can send an ad, right? And someone's being paid for their time and attention. If you want to follow up the same way you've started to see on Instagram, because they started doing this, where they follow up and say, have you seen this ad? Or have you blah, blah, blah. We have that same because we have a research system. You can follow up with a survey and ask questions, or you could follow up with the people that didn't click it and ask questions, or the people that did engage and ask questions, and pay a little bit more to this person for their peace of mind to better your ads, right? To find out what's working, what's not working. And we say advertise like a researcher. And we also want, let me just throw this in there because I've gone on all of my dreams. We also want, because people can link their financial transactions, that you can actually eventually end up completing that loop, where if someone ended up buying something, maybe you give them something extra, which is kind of like cash back, but it's like, you were paid to see this advertised, you did this, you know, this company has validated that you actually made a purchase, and because they respect you, they're also going to give you cash back on that purpose. And you can complete this loop that every advertiser is trying to figure out. It's like, just pay the person and respect them. Like it's only complicated because companies like ours have trouble getting to scale. But at scale, like if, you know, someone flipped the script, I told Facebook's Data for Good team, and I said 2 things. I said, start telling people how you're targeting them, so it's a little less creepy, so at least they know and they can turn things off. A lot of people won't do it,
right? But
at least you gave them that choice. And I said, well, they obviously weren't going to start paying people for their data. That was a long shot, but I did tell them to. I tried. But I was just like, if you give someone some fair compensation, like they might be willing to actually, once they spend something, complete that advertising loop for you, so that you know who's made these purchases and what type of people they are and why. And so it is better for companies, but you're also partnering with people and giving money into their lives where they can spend on their products if they're loyal to you. So I don't know. It's a better system. We just need to get people doing it.
Yes, and be able to scale. But yeah, it's to me, it just seems like the companies are not willing to give up not only money, but control.
Yeah.
And, I mean, is it more about not giving somebody who actually saw their advertisement and bought the product, like you called it, the advertising loop, which I'm learning from you guys who are in advertising, but it seems like it's a lack of willingness to give up some control, even more so than money.
There's definitely that piece because companies right now are being valued whether they should or not on like, we have proprietary data. And like a lot of people aren't asking the questions of like, okay, and what is that data? Like, is that inventory data? Is that on ads? Like what type of data is that? And people need to, on a valuation standpoint, do a better job of that. But I think because there's this hype around data, and people aren't breaking down the word data into all of these different categories that it fits in. There's your email data, there's PII, there is your health data is different than your financial data, is different than your social data. Like there's all of these different things. And when people put it in one word, data, and they go, well, we have data. And everyone goes, well, that must be valuable. That must be valuable. And so it kind of creates just, I don't know, this weird fake culture where companies are hoarding something that they're not even using to do things with. Like we've talked to several companies that are like, well, we have all this data, but we don't, like we don't do stuff with it. And we go, but it's valuable. And I go, well, if you're not using it and it's not pushing your company forward and it's not bettering your product, you're this, you're that, it isn't. So why are you holding that?
Yeah.
Do something with it or don't. So I think this idea that all data is valuable is also very incorrect. And so companies are sucking into that because it helps with their valuations, it helps them raise money, it helps with all these things. And the companies themselves get sucked in to a trap. So there's a little bit of control, there's a little bit of valuation, and like, I don't know, it's not price gouging, but just a little bit of politics in business. And I think with the right, I wish regulation, which would just nudge people to pay for consented data. Like as far as, I know this is kind of a shift in topic, but as far as like what regulations and government could actually do to help, if they gave a tax break, because that's such a thing in America, if they gave a tax break for companies who advertised on platforms that were respecting people's data and choices, I think a lot of people would shift, even if there's less people there. If they could, the same way people give money to charities because they want a tax break or this, if you created that proper incentive for companies, other than just like, hey, it's better, because they know that and they go, but you don't have the scale. If we could have some regulation help us out in that front, I think a lot of people would shift and this whole industry could be sped up by years. So hopefully the government does anything.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that's a wonderful thought. It's a great idea, but I wouldn't hold my breath on government regulation on that.
I don't count on it, but I know one can put it out into the universe for whoever listens.
Maybe if it's out there in the universe, there's a chance of it happening. But you'd also have to convince the government, some people would say, to stop taking your data too. So, don't happen soon, except you are trying to give it a shot here with UBDI.
Yeah, no, we are. And I do think, I will say there are companies, and because that was very negative. I will say there are companies that are very willing, to try this. And we've had some like Fortune 500 companies that really, it just came down to the scale for us. And it's because we were trying to solve both chicken and egg at the same time before this social thing, where we were like trying to pay people to get enough in to entice the company. And they were interested in what our tool set does. And they were excited to use it. And they just said, you just need more people. Like, it's really almost that simple. And so, you know, we're hoping with this social app that, because it's like can benefit people, because it's fun, because we still have this mission, that we can get enough people in there to change that. That's the hope, the dream, if you will.
All right. Well, I have certainly learned a lot about this, even my whole perception of data too, because I was thinking of it as all encompassing as well, and not broken down like the way you broke it down for us. So I'm hoping that whoever listens to the podcast sees the value in that and goes to UBDI, but it's UBDI. So we make the distinction clear. But you were doing an interview with NPR, and that's how you found out people didn't know how to spell it.
It was my first interview ever, and it was a cold email from what was it, Molly Wood at Marketplace Tech. Like, it was crazy that I even got this email. And I was like, oh my God. And I went on, and we read her comments because she posted the interview, and on Twitter, people said, how do you spell it? Is it ooh? And just the number of things people did, I was like, I don't even think that sounds like what I said, but maybe. So I've learned the lesson. UBDI, UBDI.
Yes, UBDI. For super users, it's UBDI.
Yes, for the super users, the inside scoop.
Dana Budzyn, look her up on LinkedIn, UBDI, or her personal profile. Obviously, the website, UBDI.
Which, by the way, you can actually, it's live and you can take part now.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, there's an app, and we actually just built the web app. And fun fact on your profile, just a little sprinkle here. On your profile, you can, there's 38,000 people as of today, which is very exciting. On your profile, thank you. I just added something, and our developers were like, are we really doing this? And I was like, yes, please. On your profile that people can click on, I just added the ability to add a background. So it's kind of like MySpace, but like a data space. And I'm excited about where that's going, and no one else is, but I'm pretty sure that people are going to love that.
You can add backgrounds in a lot of.
As long as it takes Facebook down, I'm all for it. So suck it, Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
By the way, we're live streaming to Facebook right now. So
yeah, right. So,
okay, cool.
That's all.
It's all right. They banned their ads for like a while, which was fun.
Well,
so that's exciting.
I can't thank you enough. Bill and I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and explaining all of this to us, and to everybody who's going to listen. And I really hope people come check you out.
Yeah,
I hope I made sense, because
I will
sometimes
certainly
I
be
don't.
following this. I will follow this for sure.
Yeah, sign up. It takes all of 5 seconds. It doesn't even require an email. So check it out. Super easy.
Very cool. Awesome. All right, Dana, thank you so much. And I look forward to checking in with you further down the road.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.